A lot of news for James Cook after his performance against the Vols Saturday night. The Offensive Player of the Week for the Reese's Senior Bowl, and that's a big deal. Organization down there in Birmingham, in Alabama. Uh, James with 10 carries for, let me make sure I get it right, 10 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 receptions for 43 yards, and another touchdown. So that's 13 touches for 147 yards and 3 touchdowns. James Cook. This is what Georgia coach Kirby Smart had to say about James after the game. So I was the one that asked him because I knew I'd be talking about it this week. He says, "James, man, you talk about a guy who wills himself to win. I mean, this guy wants to win bad. He doesn't care what it takes. He'll do anything you ask. He went out and played on a punt team he hasn't played on in a couple of weeks. We didn't have enough out there, and he went out there and did that. I don't know. I didn't know about the touches for 147 yards, but the guy makes plays and he's getting better as the season progresses. I am really proud of what James has done for James, but I'm even more proud of James for what James has done for this team because when James speaks, he carries a lot of weight with the players. They respect James. So James Cook grew up in Miami, uh, playing playing a very competitive high school circuit down there. I went down to visit him in Miami in 2018. I can't remember when it was, but it was whenever he was about to sign with Georgia. He had not committed yet. And the biggest thing that I learned when I was down there was that James was going to do his own thing. And what I mean by that is, and what the people who I spoke to about that, what that meant was that his brother Dalvin was a huge deal at the time. Dalvin Cook's still a huge deal in terms of what he can do on the football field. But James wanted his own path. He wanted his legacy, whether that was in Miami or beyond. And I think he's created that. I mean, you look at what James has done in the November section of these last 2 seasons. Um, he's really had a great run at the end of the year. The difference this season is, um, let's hope he's not going to miss the bowl game. I can't imagine he would this time, and or the bowl games plural. And the games are going to mean more now. When he was ripping up Carolina and Mizzou last year, those were Georgia getting right games. Those were blowout games on the road where Georgia was trying to figure out, hey, what are we doing here? Like, what's the focus of this team? How are we going to play on offense? And he really connected with JT Daniels in a big way. Was a great performer. And then this past week over Tennessee weekend, it's probably the best game a running backs had at Georgia in some time. And it was only with 10 carries, but James is not just a running back. He can do all sorts of things. He's frightening in the passing game. Linebackers can't keep up with him. And we're going to see some guys that are going to be able to keep up with him better than the Tennessee backers. But that touchdown before the half, they Stetson knew that James. Well, they didn't know when he got flexed out. They knew that he was in single coverage. It was one on one against what looked like a very bulky linebacker. And James, I don't even know if he made. I think he might have made a move, but basically he just ran by him, and Stetson put the ball right where it had to be. He had 5 yards cushion in the end zone, and the backer was not near him, probably 5 yards away, and touchdown, game over. The game was over. So, you get 2 scores and you got Georgia's defense. Tennessee's not coming back. And Tennessee has a pretty good uh, offense. But, you know, it's obvious that James Cook is going to be a player. I thought his season would be more productive than it's been so far. But to be fair, this season, he's not had to play a lot. And there's something to be said for that. This season he had 19 against Clemson. Run. I'll give you the running because the passing is a little different. But 19 against Clemson, 18 against UAB, 51 against Carolina, 35 against Vandy, 87 big day against Arkansas, 35 against Auburn. That's a good day. 51 against the Gators, good day. Excuse me, against Kentucky, that was a good day. 10 for 46 against the Gators, 9 for 41 against Mizzou with a touchdown. Had a touchdown against the Gators. And then today, or excuse me, this weekend, 10 for 104, 2 touchdowns. against the Vols, a 39-yard touchdown, 3 receptions for 43 yards with a touchdown. I mean, if he were playing in the national championship game, James Cook would be, or the SEC championship, James Cook would be, you know, never forgotten in the history of time at Georgia. I mean, he has been exceptional. There have been games where he's been straight up exceptional at Georgia, and the truth is, he's an unselfish, quiet guy like his teammate Zamir. And hey, if one of them's getting it, the other one doesn't care. Last year against Carolina, six rushes for 144 yards. It was insane. He had 101 yards with a touchdown against Alabama receiving. I mean, he really showed out against Alabama last year. Against Mizzou last year, a 37-yard touchdown receiving. He had 6 carries for 44 yards against Mizzou last year. This guy is a stud. But in Georgia's system, in offense, defense, system, their team, you got guys who are exceptionally good players who they don't always have to show out. And that's what happens. I mean, Zamir's had a heck of a season, but I've not talked about Zamir at all because there's been no reason to. I mean, he just does what he does. I mean, he didn't have a bad game against Tennessee. He had a good game, I would say, but he was coming off his one of his best, sections of the season. That 105 game against the Gators, he went for 74 against Clemson, 34 against UAB, 51, 48, 68 against Arkansas, 79 against Auburn, 46 against the Cats, 105 against the Gators. He was killing the Gators. Only 14 against Mizzou, but he had a touchdown. Zamir's only had 3 games. He's not scored a touchdown. He scored a touchdown 9 times this season. It's hard to say all of these things. These guys are very good teammates. They were and visiting with both of them before they went to Georgia. They're both quiet guys. They're both. I mean, I saw Zamir the other day help a Tennessee defender up off the ground after he had gotten tackled by the guy. These guys, it's just the way that they are. But one thing that Gary Danielson said during the game that I think is really critical here, Zamir and James are not going to be the same type of back when they go to the NFL. I think James' trajectory goes higher. His potential is higher than what Zamir's is because of what he could do. Gary Danielson during the game says James Cook is going to make a great pro football player. He gives you everything, and he does. He gives you out of the backfield. He gives you straight up running back. He can protect the quarterback. Oh, and he can be a kickoff guy. So it's really he is a quintessential third down guy, but he can do other stuff too. But you're a third down back in the league. You could be around for a while, and I don't have anything bad to say about it. I have never heard anybody say anything bad about James Cook. When you listen to what Kirby says, when Kirby doesn't want to talk about somebody, he just says, "Hey," and then he shifts it to another thing. We got a paragraph and a half of Kirby talking about James. It's he's the type of guy. Him, Zamir, they're the type of guys. Bennett, Daniels, Zamir, Cook, Jamari, these are Devontae. These are the type of guys that you have to have in order to have a program that runs big team, little me. And the reason why is because they all came back. Have you ever heard any static in the air about Stetson Bennett leaving, coming back? There was no fanfare. It just happened. There's been no drama with JT Daniels. There's been no drama with Zamir and James Cook. They just go out and play. And I think they're smart enough to know, clearly they are intelligent, because they know that their time comes at Georgia as a running back. And by the way, Georgia's got 5 legit running backs. I mean, Kendall Milton's hurt right now, and his time will come too. But these guys have earned it. And James Cook, I've admired him in his playing ability. I do not know James Cook, but I've admired his playing ability for a long time, and the way he carries himself on the field, the work he does. He is an exceptional player, and I think you don't want to get ahead of things, but we're coming to James Cook time. We're coming to times when he's going to be used by Georgia as a total weapon against whoever it is in the championship game, probably Alabama, and then from those games on. So this 3-game stretch here coming up soon, James Cook is the guy he's not exploded yet, and he just did against Tennessee. So now we're going to see, hey, it just could be the James Cook show in a couple of weeks here as time goes on. We'll talk about it more on the website, dogpost.com.